about this than Santos Bonacci. So, Santos, welcome back to the show.
Thanks, Chris.
Oh, it's a pleasure having you, man. How's everything down under?
Good. The weather's warming up now. We've just gone through the worst of winter. It's been very, very cold. A lot of rain, but it's starting to warm up now nicely.
Is it good? Good. Here it is hot as can be, and it's starting to cool down. Are you guys having droughts down there?
No. We're having too much rain.
Oh,
flooding everywhere.
Okay. Yeah, we're having droughts up here, so hopefully you can send some of that rain this way because we really need it.
Yeah.
Well, how's everything going? Your Universal Truth School, what have you been up to as far as that goes?
Well, I've got a new presentation to upload soon in the next couple of days dealing with astrology and the cell salts of salvation. So the cell salts, or the mineral salts, are the 12 pillars of health. They've been known throughout all of antiquity, but guys like Hippocrates and Paracelsus and all of these guys used herbs to heal people. But more recently in history, we have a German scientist called Schussler in the 18th, 19th century who developed the 12 tissue salts. And there's one salt for every sign of the zodiac. So when you get familiar with these salts and you administer them to your body, you will balance the biochemistry of the body to perfection. And this was the science that the Egyptians and Babylonians left us. It had to do with looking after the temple. The temple is the body. And once the body is perfectly balanced with the 12 salts of salvation coming from the word salt, one can steer their physical organisms to eternal life. It's the elixir of life. It's the philosopher's stone, the manna from heaven, and it's all there hiding nicely and compactly in what we call the Bible. The Bible is full of biochemistry.
Well, you know what, Santos? It's funny you mentioned salts because we just talked about this last night. We recently saw a YouTube video about this girl in India, and she produces crystals out of her eyes. About 7 a day. They're razor sharp, but they never hurt her eyes. And the first thing that I thought was she was producing salt crystals. Have you seen anything like that?
Yeah, the body is a pillar of salt. This is why in the scriptures when Lot's wife turns around to look back at Sodom and Gomorrah burning, Sodom and Gomorrah have reference to the 2 bottom chakras. Sodom is the very, very bottom chakra, obviously. And Gomorrah is the place where the sacral plexus is. And as these were being destroyed with fire and sulfur, which is basically just allegorical language explaining that if we burn Sodom and Gomorrah with fire and sulfur, it means that we burn them and we purify them. And what it means is we rise above those chakras. But Lot's wife, she looked back, and she longed for the pleasures that come from those bottom chakras. You see, sex happens down there. Power, wealth, all of those earthy things that have to do with the cube that we're going to talk about in a minute. But she looked back and became a pillar of salt. Well, what that means is that she had to return and incarnate once more because she looked back. She was longing for the things of this earth. See, we as human beings live in the middle kingdom. In the middle kingdom, we can choose whether we're going to behave animalistically and enjoy the fruits of fleshly living and hence stay associated and attached to it, or we can choose to live in what's called a spiritual manner, and that means to desist from the so-called pleasures, because every pleasure that your body enjoys on the earthly plane is in fact pain. It's just dressed differently, it feels different, but the end result is it puts a strain on the heart, all pleasures, all sensations, all emotions. puts a strain on the heart, poisons the blood, and corrupts the blood and the biochemistry. When the blood is corrupted, all sicknesses occur. And how we corrupt the blood is through overeating, overdrinking, all the acidic things that keep the body in an acidic state. So once the temple is looked after, salvation takes care of itself, because if the temple is clean and pure and we've perfected every defilement of the flesh, in other words, what it means is to be strong enough to not be seduced by desire. You know, desire is the serpent, that beautiful, powerful, energetic serpent that rises in the sacral area, the second bottommost chakra, and it rises up the spine, and it's just irresistible. This is why young people, the moment they feel that sexual urge, they've got to go off and discharge that energy.
Is this the Kundalini serpent?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, it is. Yeah, absolutely. And it's a beautiful energy. It's not evil. There's nothing wrong with sex, you know. It's just that what's wrong with sex is how one practices sex.
Exactly. Yep.
Yep. Good on you, Cherie. I'm glad you
decided to join the conversation.
Yeah. How you going?
Well, I was just going to say, you see that with children who are sexually abused. You see them have a lot of problems with getting along with others, because sex and pain are located in the same area of the brain. If they do fMRI scans on people that are about to orgasm and people who are going through a lot of pain, it's actually in the same area. And so when you confuse a child when they're really little like that, then it causes pain conditions later. So it's interesting that you said that.
Yeah, beautiful. Well said. Excellent. It's so true. It's very true. And when you look at sensation and emotion, you will find that if you've studied Carl Jung, sense is the earth, corresponds with the earth element, and emotion corresponds with water, thinking corresponds with air, intuition corresponds with fire. So the intuition being at the highest place is what we have been endowed with above the animals. We have the intuition, the direct access to the akashic knowledge. That's the intuition, connected to the right brain. But you see, the left brain is all about thinking, logic and reason, the trivium, etc. And there's nothing wrong with that either. They're both useful, but one has the ability to sidetrack us permanently from the source, because it's so irresistible to engage the left brain and to discover technology and ways of doing things outside of oneself. And this is what the world is so busy engaging in. They idolize technology as though it were God. And yet most of the technology produced is very, very harmful to the human organism. Take, for instance, your cell phone. It's great technology. It's absolutely amazing, especially these smartphones. But the moment you put it anywhere near your head, which is where people actually, stupidly enough, put it, it's destroying, it's absolutely frying the cells in the brain.
Right.
So here we are, we're so smart, and yet we're so stupid. And it's everything below intuition, thinking, emotion, and sense, which is causing us, in fact, it's causing us more harm than anything else. Even though we try and do those things in a nice way, we try to get nice emotions, we try to get nice sensations, but they're still sensations. They are still deceptive, and they still poison the blood. Now, in the Bible, it often talks about new wine, and Jesus says, you must drink my blood. It's rather ghastly, some of the expressions in the Bible, really. But if you understand them, you see, once we've done the good work, the alchemical work of balancing the chemistry in the body, The oil that's produced in the cerebrum, the high brain, in Aries, not to be confused with the cerebellum, the Taurus brain, the lower brain, the animal brain, which is where 99% of mankind are dwelling. Those beautiful oils ascend. They've got nowhere else to go. And once they ascend, they return to the cranium where they came from in the first place. And and what happens there is that the dormant brain cells are reactivated. Now, as the oil goes down and descends through the nervous system, what happens is it gets differentiated and it gets polluted and corrupted with all the animal cells and the animal emotions and sensations and all the drama that we get involved with our personalities. And then what happens is the blood is corrupted. But if we are able to live in continence and moderation and control and be in charge like a good captain of the ship, of our vessels, just like Hercules, Odysseus, he tied himself to the mast of the ship because the sirens were calling, you know. And he tied himself and put wax in his ears. And the mast of the ship represents the spinal cord. The spinal cord is the center. And that's usually the center of the ship. And it denotes massive control. You see, it takes a lot of control to say no to the sirens, because they want to engage us in temptation. You see, they want to engage us so we can pollute the blood and stay in incarnation. With polluted blood, we can never ascend. And how one ascends is by raising the oil in the spinal cord. And when it touches the optic thalamus after much exercise and meditation and good practices, new blood is produced. What happens is the pineal gland from that moment on, produces new blood in the body. And that's the new wine of the Christ at the marriage of Cana, where he turns water into wine. Our body has the elixir of life in it. And the oil in it is called Christos in Greek. And that's the Christ that we should be looking after, the Christ within. In Colossians chapter 1, 26 and 27, the Apostle Paul says, "The sacred secret that was hidden to the nations before all times is now revealed unto you, which is the Christ in you." And that oil is so precious. Now, we're engaging in many practices that are destroying that oil. Fluoride in the water, sodium fluoride that is, poisons the oil, burns the pineal gland, destroys all the oil. Aspartame, sugar-free, destroys the oil. Overeating, all those triple cheeseburgers at McDonald's and wash it down with some Diet Coke. Right. All of these are totally destructive to the human organism, and new blood cannot be produced in the physical organism. So we have sick people everywhere, and their sickness is apparent through their countenance. You see, Cicero 2,000 years ago said the countenance is the portrait of the mind, and the eyes are its informer. Mm-hmm. So you can see written on people's faces, you can see their devastating condition. Their bodies are totally acidic. Some people appear to be white and grey and wrinkled, withdrawn and tense, stressed, sad, depressed, mental conditions, etc. All of these has to do with imbalance of the biochemistry and a lack of the minerals.